We are up. Yes, we are live. Dan, you're in the house. You're in a place to be. What is up, man?
Woo!
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
man. Yeah, you seem to have one of these stories that I like hearing about. I guess is what I'm gonna say. It seems like things were going very well for you. It's very working your way up, going to the top of your game, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
some bad shit happened. I guess,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your thunder or whatever, but some bad stuff happened, and you just kind of had to kind of rework everything. Is that kind of
That is a great read. So, we're recording this in winter, November 2022. I lose track of time. Time is hard. Came into 2022 and things were going really great with my businesses. I have two software companies. One that just recently launched in 2022. The other one was, we had a nice growth trajectory. I was looking forward to riding that into 2022, and then like a whole kind of perfect storm started out this year. A business partner decided to move on to another project, and so she departed. There were three of us with one of our softwares, Trust Scout. That's that software. And she was our technical partner, so she was the one who did all the code and knew all the development stuff. She decided to part ways with us. At the same time, my grandmother passed away, and also my accountant passed away. And in tandem with all of those events, all of our efforts with Trescout that had been going so well just kind of came to a screeching halt. We had made some big plans to go after a new market, going from agencies to straight to local businesses, and that just didn't at all work for us. We kind of branched out. I think we got a little too. A little ahead of ourselves, got our head our nose over our skis. How's that phrase go? And yeah, it crashed hard. And so coming into the to 2022 and all this was happening, it just really made me reevaluate everything that I was doing and ask, is this really the life that I want to be living? Is everything that I'm doing what I want to be doing? I think that as entrepreneurs, that we often get into entrepreneurship with like knowing that it's going to be a grind, it's going to be a haul, we're going to push through it, and then on the other side we're going to have less stress, more freedom, more financial freedom. But then often none of that comes true, or at least not necessarily in the timeline that we hope. And so ever since then, I've just been passionate about helping entrepreneurs realign our day-to-day life with our lifestyle goals, meaning not just putting off our happiness, our contentment, our families, our enjoyment of life in the present for a future that may never come. So that's, I mean, in short, I can get I can get on my soapbox from there, but yeah, that's what I bring into the room here tonight.
so? Damn. So, did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? Was that your goal
Mm,
growing up? To say go into software and
yeah.
start your own thing? And
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. That was me in junior high, high school. Ended up I was kind of always a creative kid. I liked music, I liked acting, liked art, all those kinds of things. And I think I kind of didn't really fit the mold in my family. My brother's an engineer, a developer. My dad's an engineer, aerospace engineer. My mom's an accountant, and then they've got the creative kid. Um, Ended up studying music and ministry, and ended up as a youth pastor for the first 5 years of my career. I think a lot of reasons in hindsight being 2020, and pretty quickly in that role. And I hope this is I'm giving you the long version of the story.
yeah,
So
yeah,
tell me to fast forward if we need
I hear
to.
the details.
Um, Pretty soon after I started in that role, it was pretty clear it wasn't a good fit, but I didn't really know what else to do. It's just the kind of the thing that I thought, in high school and going into college, like, okay, this is something I enjoy doing myself. I may as well do this. But in hindsight, I can see looking back that it was really my youth pastor that encouraged me in that direction, pushed me in that direction. I had to go through this process of really finding myself and finding what I wanted to do. Came to really understand that I like starting things. I like having a lot of irons in the fire. I like making it up as I go along, and that doesn't at all fit with being a being a pastor, right? You kind of have to fit the mold. I like to break the mold. And so that was, I don't know, 2010 or so, that I started out on my entrepreneurial journey. The photography company, started the Meaning Movement, which is my podcast now, that I also am helping entrepreneurs with this like work life alignment stuff. And have been kind of iterating ever since. That took me down some side paths as I'm trying to equip myself and learn how to run businesses into the software world, which has brought me, where I am today with the softwares that I've been building.
So was that your first software? Would you say Trust Scout? Is that what it was
Yeah,
called?
so Trust Scout was the first that we launched, that we built ourselves. We built another one that pretty much was kind of dead on arrival. It's learned a lot along the way as far as like how to build something. But the way I got into software is through partnerships. And so I really am a firm believer that partnerships, everything good in my life has come through people, come through
Yeah,
relationships.
I get that.
And as I was, trying to learn about business, about growing an online business, got to know a guy who was doing some stuff in the SEO space, who was getting involved with a private equity firm. They bought a software company, and he was like, "Hey, I like doing business with you. What do you think about stepping on and running this software company?" So that was kind of my entrance into the software world. After that, then I was like, I kind of understand how this works. Let's try to do it ourselves. Started Trust Scout, and then more recently Video Snap. And so the idea has been, let's iterate, let's just make new software and see kind of what sticks, what finds roots, what kind of finds a good market,
Sure.
and then lean into that and build on that.
Is it tough being in this market right now just because in the software, just because there's always new software, new apps, new everything
Yeah,
coming out?
totally.
And I know you just said and you explained what Video Snap is, but it's
Yeah.
always yeah, I mean, is that what it is? It's trying to create something new, something that has been done, just trying to stay trendy, stay catchy, keep it snappy, you know?
I definitely think you want to capitalize on, at least my theory is, you want to capitalize on what's happening in the market, where there's opportunities. And I think a combination of both the interests in culture, in the market, in business, as well as advancements in technology, and kind of the intersection between those things. But you layer on top of that just the competition out there. You want to have some competition. If you don't have any competition,
Yeah.
then you might have a hard time convincing people that that they need you. But also in software, there's such a broad spectrum um, of players that you're going head to head with. And if you're going against a VC backed company that they can spend as much as they want to bring on as many users as they want, as a bootstrapped entrepreneur like myself, I'm not going to be able to play that game. And so there are like limitations that you have. But kind of to your question, I mean, well, let me just tell you what Video Snap does, because I think that could be an interesting way to frame it. Video Snap is a content repurposing tool for long form speech based content. So what that means is, well, as on social, and you can quickly extract that moment and then make a text over B-roll style video from it that you can then, it's basically viral ready for TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, all the places where people are spending time. Get your long form content, which usually doesn't perform well in algorithms, repackaged into a hot package, a hot format that can do well. So even in that, and the reason I described some of that is, like, right now at this moment, all the platforms are moving towards short form video. So I saw this opportunity, like, I want to figure out a way to get my content. I'm making, I have a podcast, I'm making long form speech based content that I really love. I love these conversations, much like, like you do with this show.
Mhm.
But finding new listeners is so hard, and you can put links on Facebook and Twitter, wherever, and maybe somebody will click on it, but it's not going to perform that well. So the problem is, like, how do I take advantage of this movement towards short form video and the content that I'm already creating to make a tool like this. There's other tools that do similar things, but not that really solve that problem of how do you quickly and easily repurpose long form content into short form content. And that's what we're going after. So I think there's an opportunity here. I think the technologies are right between transcription software and tapping into B-roll libraries, all of these things
Yeah.
to make a cool product. And that's kind of the genesis.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I'm wondering when, promoting the show and doing all that, where things go as far as Instagram. And I don't really mess with TikTok much, but Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and that's and Snapchat, just wherever you want to do. But just and like you said, things seem to be like one week. Some things seem to be like you need to post like a 7-second video in order to get
Yes.
so many,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
I was reading on YouTube is sending out this thing where they're trying to go heavy into the podcast thing, where they're actually wanting you to have these long drawn out conversations like you and I are having, but I
Yeah.
want you to cut it up and have the short, or we have
Yep.
shorts now.
Yep. YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
cut it up like that. And so it gets to me,
Totally.
and for a guy like me who's never really done a whole lot of this, right? As far as marketing, digital marketing, whatever you want to say, it's a little overwhelming and just,
Totally.
and I'm a one man show too. And it's just like, just me get the whole show out there and edit it and have free time to do everything else I want to do gets a little overwhelming. But,
Yeah.
one of the things, like you said, that cutting it up and transcribing it and just, filling out what people are like catching their eyes right now. Like,
Yes.
what is it? And just
Yes.
this seems to be the ticket.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my idea is, I want to see where all these where all the money is flowing, where these platforms investing their R&D budget, and then find a way to get my content there and help other people do the same.
Yeah. Is that one of the things that most people who start podcasts or start, hey, I want to create content, like this is one of their first struggles? I mean, I had other struggles along the way, but it's one that I've been running to. It goes up and down for me.
Yeah. I think the first struggle is editing. Well, the first struggle is like it's like hardware. It's like microphone and headphones and your setup, and then it's editing, and then after editing is growth. And so it's not. I don't think it's the first struggle, but I think we all quickly get it. Like once you get into the rhythm, once you're like, okay, it's not hard for me to make another episode of the podcast. Then you start thinking about like, okay, now how do I get more listeners? How do I get found?
Yeah. So with Video Snap, I mean, what are you doing anything right now as far as marketing on Instagram and just throwing it out there? I mean, has it launched yet, or is it?
Yeah, so we just launched a few weeks ago. So we did a soft launch, kind of a stealth launch where we're doing promotions to other software. So again, I said like everything in my life has come through partnerships. So partnering with other software owners that we know and doing a promotion to their list where I would do a training about how to repurpose content, the ideas behind repurposing, why you want to do this, basically, so you can be Gary V, right? You can show up everywhere, be everywhere,
Sure.
On all the social media channels. So we got our first, a batch of users, about 45 users, so via that before we even doing those trainings before we even had like a real website. So just a couple of weeks ago, we launched the website. We're not running paid ads right now because we're scrappy. We're bootstrapped. We don't have VC backed, money. We haven't done funding rounds or anything like that. But what I am doing is doing interviews like this and trying to get on great shows like this to have interesting conversations where I can also say, hey, and I have the software if anyone's interested.
Well, that's part of, with technology today and everything, that most people can just easily get on a show and, well, not easily, but just go on a show and just talk about it rather than just throw out a 30-second snippet on, whatever platform or whatever. And then you can actually dive more into exactly like why you created it, how you created it, and like what was the obstacles and what was the meaning of it and where do you have it geared toward and stuff like that. And actually kind of, get 100% to kind of know your personality and stuff. It's like, even just
I think then people are buying into not just a product. Hopefully it's a great product. I mean, it really is a great product. The team that I built it with. So again, I'm non-technical. 923.co is the agency that I partnered with to build this. They're amazing agency for web apps, mobile apps. So we built an incredible piece of software, and hopefully people will, say, yeah, that's something that sounds cool. That's something I could use. Maybe you'll use it. But even more than like the utility of it is also like, hopefully I'm building a relationship too. Right. And then someone's like, hey, that guy seems trustworthy. He's got an interesting story. Like, I want to be a part of this just because he's the one behind it. So it kind of has this whole nother story layer to just a product that has utility.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like, would somebody who actually, put their blood, sweat, and tears into a product, and even that if it's not where you want it to be yet, but just knowing that person and what they did for it.
Yes.
And even if there's issues with it or whatever that I'm having as I could easily call on Dan and be like, yo, what's up? Yeah, like, help me out here. Like, and then and you kind of feed off one another, and that, like you said, that like editing and hardware and mics and stuff. And that's one thing that I tell people, if you want to do something, like don't use like, oh, I need to get a better mic or I need to get a $5,000 setup to
Totally.
yeah, like
so guilty of that.
Yeah, get your iPhone out, put your AirPods in,
Yeah.
Use another phone or your iPad, whatever you have, and just start recording.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
video. And that was one thing that I had to learn to get over my obstacle, because there's always 1,000 reasons to say no to something, right?
Yeah. And even if you have the best studio in the world, right? Like let's put it in the context of a musician, right? You could have the greatest musical setup in the entire world, and you are not going to be, creating a hit, right? Like that's not actually what it takes to make a hit. And the same is totally true. Like you're not going to become Paul McCartney just because you've got a really nice piano, right? Like sure. You've actually got to use it. Exactly. And that's where the real magic lies. We tend to focus on these externals and these maybe symbolic things and say, oh, well, I need a better mic. I need a better this or that. When really, like, you just got to do the work.
Exactly. Do you know who Stephen Pressfield is?
Yes.
Yeah, his book, The War of Art, I think it's what it's called.
I love it. Yep. Yeah, fantastic book.
What he talks about is just just go to work and just do the dirty stuff that you don't want to do, and all of a sudden he calls it the muse, I think, for those who haven't read it. And like it just comes to you and like magic happens and you start to build, like you plant a seed and it starts to grow, right? And
yeah. But it only comes if you're there in the chair, right? Because he's a writer, so he's there in the chair. But like you've got to be doing the work first, and then inspiration happens. And we tend to flip that around and say, well, we got to have all the right tools, we got to have all the right stuff, so that then inspiration will come. When really it's just like, do the work.
Is that this part of society today? Because I hear that all the time, is especially when I'm doing my training and stuff, that people are like, oh well, I can't go work out yet, I gotta go get in shape before I go work out. I was like, well, that's counterintuitive, ain't it? That don't make sense. And then they go and buy new shoes, a new outfit, like on Monday, right? And they come Tuesday, then I'm pretty sore, I ain't coming the rest of the week, and then it's out, and it's like, wait, bro, what are you doing?
I think it's like partly we like to have a good external, like we want to have a good, a pretty picture. And I think social media plays into this too, right? Like, on Instagram, it's not just like the poorly framed selfies, right? It's always like the right angle. You gotta look good. So we're always seeing like this curated version of everyone else. And so then I think we have this pressure that like, we don't want to be in process. We don't want to be a mess. We don't want to have our microphone not sound perfect and crisp on the podcast or whatever might be. Like there's this fear, I think, of being in process. But I really believe, and maybe this is the pastor in me, from 15 plus years ago, like that's part of being human. Like it's part of it's what it means to be human. Is we're always growing, we're always becoming, and so like to be in process in its very nature is part of the human experience. And so the more we can show up that way, and just admit that, like, kind of like, I guess, my story in 2022, right? It's been a ride of a year, and I'm not proud of it, but like, that's the reality of the year that I've lived. And that's my truth in this moment.
Yeah. That was one thing I had to learn to get out of my own way when starting this podcast.
Yeah.
That, like you said, nobody's perfect, I don't, nobody wants to look like a fool when they try something new. Right. But I had to put that aside and just say, whatever, I'm going to try it out.
Yes.
What happens, and just go with it,
Yes.
And it was like when you were talking about, you said earlier, and I don't want to skip over this, but you said like you started like these companies and you have little to no technical skills.
Yeah.
You said,
Yes.
So I had to learn just to, I'll pick up.
Learn as you go.
Yeah. I'll learn.
I'm a hack job. I'm a hack job through and through, and like, that's again, like, this is me being like, we're all in process, but like, the people that we look up to the most, they're just figuring it out as they go. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to themselves and also lying to you, So like, it's okay to not know. It's okay to figure it out. And that's, I think that's life at its best, is like, there's no map to where we want to go, especially in 2022, right? Like career paths, what is a career path anymore? Chasing your dreams, like, it's always going to be a very squiggly, non-linear, a very circuitous path. And so embrace that.
Was that, starting your software companies and with like little no technical skills, like you said, what's the hardest thing, or even your podcast too, if you want to mention that, but what was the hardest or biggest obstacle, even personally, or just
Mm.
with the equipment setup that you had to, overcome besides like just talking about learning as we go and you just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
was it just like for me, it was like I said, getting out of my own way and just
Yes.
going to work.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I think there's always the next obstacle. And it's like as soon as you, and I think that's some of the challenge is like you reach these moments when you feel like you've made it. I mean, and that again, coming into 2022, I was like, we have this great growth trajectory. We're going to start, my business partner and I are going to start taking, transitioned our LLC to be a S corp or whatever it is, so that we can like start taking a salary and like all this stuff. And it's like, and then it all comes crumbling down. You think you get to the summit, and then it's like a false summit, and there's still more climb to be had on the other side. But like the commonality, the theme when I look back on my whole journey, the hardest part is like really believing. I mean, this is gonna sound like really soft, but that's who I am. But like kind of like believing in yourself along the
sure,
way.
I get
Like it's hard. It's really hard. And there's some days you're like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to solve this problem. I don't know how to get more users to video snap, right? But I'm gonna get on some podcasts and see what happens. And like being okay with like the unknown of what you're doing, trying to get to an outcome, but not being certain what the path is to that outcome, and believing that you have the resources internally to face whatever might come up. I think that's the hard part, but that's also the fun part.
sure.
It's both. But
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a thing that I've learned in this little journey that I've been doing lately, like through my fitness journey and podcast journey, that doing hard things, you find out about what type of personality you have and what flaws you have, or also like talking about the work. If you just wake up and just say, "Oh, I'll just edit that video later," and then you just end up not doing it till Monday or whatever. But you got to learn that that, hey, if I want to do this stuff and make it happen, I got to learn like how am I really going to do, and how am I going to set myself
Yes.
to a new routine and become the person
Yes.
that I want to be. And you look up to the big time podcasters, like, I don't know, like Joe Rogan. I don't even know who's big time right now. Ben Shapiro, the Smartless guys. They all got,
Yeah.
yeah. And so anyway, those guys, you're just like, "Oh, I can never be them." But once you just decide
Mm.
that, well, who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you
Yep.
doing it as a challenge? Are you just
Yep.
looking to have fun with it? I mean, what is your actual goals? I mean, that was my goal. I didn't know it was going to go this far, right? I thought it was just
Yeah.
a couple episodes, me just talking a bunch of trash with my friends and just excuse
Yes.
during COVID and go with that. But now me and you were having this conversation, and that was also like, my demons would come out like, okay, like I remember
Mm.
posting the first episode where I
Yeah.
was so nervous about even like when you were launching your video snap, like I was so nervous, like how people were going to take it, right? Is there going to be, what
Yep.
kind of comments am I going to get?
Yeah.
Positive, negative, whatever. It's just because, the internet can be cruel, right?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
but once you just kind of just push that aside and just say, like I said, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing this for? Why? What's your why? I
Yeah.
guess, is what it is.
Yes.
And just ignore,
I love it.
yeah, lock out the mechanism and just go with whatever you want to do.
Yes.
And yeah, and just go with that, and that's what I went into this mindset with. Once I
Yeah.
got my head that way, it took me a while, but once I got it there,
I love it. I love it. So I think, in my work around meaning and purpose with entrepreneurs, there's four areas of meaning and this applies to entrepreneurs, it applies to people with any type of work, any kind of creative endeavor or just work endeavor. Four areas where we experience meaning, and you spoke to them, and that's why I want to kind of
okay,
highlight them here. Is that you find meaning from the people. So
yep,
so they all start with P's, because I used to be a pastor, so they have to alliterate, right? The people, so that's the people you work with, the people you work for, the people that you manage, the people that you collaborate with, your friends along the way, your comrades, however you want to talk about that. Those relationships are a strong place to find meaning. The process, and we kind of already talked about the process a little bit, like that's Stephen Pressfield's stuff, right? Like it's actual doing the work. So it's like, just like you're talking about, like just it's not about the reception necessarily. It's not about, all the accolades that you'll get when you post your first episode, but like just sitting down and recording, like, so you can find meaning in the actual creative or the work of doing the work. And that applies to any field, whether an accountant that loves to get the numbers balanced, the developer who likes to make their code look pretty, all of those things. So you got the people, you got the process, the product, which, in the world of software. It's like, the software product. But like for you with this podcast is like the impact that you're making, like to make this conversation available to your listeners or whatever it might be, the benefit that you're providing to people in the world, the problem that you're solving. And then finally, it's the profit. And profit isn't necessarily money. It can be, but it's lifestyle. It's other benefits that you get back from the work that you do. And so like any work, whether it's a side project or a job or an entrepreneurial endeavor, at its best is going to like check all four of those boxes, have some strong attributes in each of those boxes. And things can get really confusing if we're really high in one or low in, and low in another. But what just to bring it full circle all the way back to like what you were saying about like, you do the work, right? You put it out there. And if you're only looking at like, what's the impact? What's the product of what I just released? You said, the internet can be cruel, and absolutely it can be cruel. But I also know that the internet can just be silent. And like, that's like in my experience of podcasting, all too often, I'm like, this great conversation. I edited this thing so well. I put it out there and then it's just crickets. Yeah, right? Like you don't get to see that impact. You don't necessarily get to see the product of the work. So in those circumstances, it's so important to be able to say, well, at least I got to have this great conversation with an interesting dude in Virginia on the other side of the country from me. And like got to enjoy, using my mic setup and my gear and getting the editing, like there's all these other benefits, all these other ways that like doing this is fun and feeds me, even if I don't get to necessarily see the product, in this actual like moment right now. So hopefully that's helpful for people.
Yeah, you know what else? While you were talking, this is what I was thinking of, that it still freaks me out to this day. Like I was telling you earlier before we started recording, that I'm coming up on year 2. But besides a few emails or whatever we exchanged to set this up, that when you come on,
you dropped.
You, nobody there?
Just checking my connection.
I can hear you. No, you're back. Are you back?
Okay, wait, you're back now. Okay.
I don't know what happened.
I was like, oh no. I'm like, my internet, everything's good here. So I lost you a whole bit there.
Just came up, said my internet connection's unstable, so I don't know what's going on.
Got it.
But so but my thought was that besides a few emails that we exchanged or whatever for us to set this up, and what freaks me out, like when I still do these things, that I never know what's coming on the other side of this computer screen, right? And I kind of got an idea how I want the conversation to go based on what I read about you and things like that.
Yes.
And like doing the research, that's kind of fun for me too. But it's also that I really don't have an idea of what this guy's personality is going to be like. I don't
100%.
know if we're going to match. I don't know if we're going to vibe. I don't know if it's just trying to pulling teeth, is trying to get, a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just, but it's also like when I was talking about those hard things that, it's like, well, I'm already in here. We're recording. I got to figure this out on the fly, and I can, right?
Yeah. But it like builds courage, I think. Like, I feel like, have you noticed that? Like, do you feel like you're more able to like strike up a conversation when you're in line at the store or like whatever? Yeah. Like, I don't know. How is it bled out into your everyday life?
So another reason why I started this is that, besides going down to the gym and just having our bro conversations and just talking about your day and and I was always the guy, growing up in college and, even in high school and stuff, whenever like certain topics like political stuff, religion, hot topics like abortion, whenever they come up, I was always the guy kind of just fading back into the scene just because
just watching.
I was like, I'm not going to express my opinions just because I don't want the judgment. I don't want to say something stupid. What are they going to think of me afterwards? Am I going to have friends after? What if I say something that's not what I meant? But anyway, but now, like I said, part of the fun is doing the research and, and like having people from all different walks of life and, different backgrounds just to help keep me well balanced and help not rigid. And that way I can see perspectives from other people's shoes. But, when I go to the gym now or go out with friends or whatever, I feel like I have more to say and I'm more comfortable in doing this. I have more to say rather than just, how was your day? How's it going? It's just,
and that's awesome.
And it makes me feel that if one of those conversations come up that, if it's politics, religion, legalize marijuana, whatever it is, that I can actually feel like I can share my thoughts. I feel more comfortable sharing my thoughts and why I think the way, if it should be this way or that way. If
Yeah.
that makes
It
sense. So, yeah.
totally makes sense.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
I don't really try to do it to random strangers in grocery stores just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like I'm just a person to get my stuff and I'm going right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate grocery shopping for some reason. But yeah, but like when I sit down and talk with people, yeah, that's what I've noticed more about me that I,
Yeah.
I feel like, and I'm not trying to put myself on a mountain or whatever, but I feel like I have more interesting things to say just besides.
Totally. I
So
love it. I love it. Well, I think that's part of like, I don't know, you getting your reps in. Like, you know how to have a conversation. You know how to, you can fill an hour with a stranger on the internet and make it really interesting. Like that's power, that's powerful.
yeah,
So if you can do that, then yeah, you can hang with your buddies when they talk about something that's, a hot button issue and not, not feel bad about it. So
and that was
I
the
love
thing
it.
too, that if it was a hot button topic, that if they were to get upset over something I said, like now is just that, well, I mean, I'm not saying like we have to argue and let's have a full out debate right here over
Yeah. Yeah.
just like this, we can talk rationally. We're adults, and just at the end of the day, though, I'm still going to respect you and hang out with you unless you just completely
Yes.
say something completely, demeaning towards me.
Yes.
And it's kind of, and I, like I said, I didn't like debates or anything like that, but now it's just kind of cool just to, when you like, if you were to say something, it's like, oh wait, never thought about it like that. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense, and
Yeah.
yeah, but like I said, like my goal for these podcasts is just for both parties to walk away and feel good about the conversation, even
Yes.
if something does come up and we disagree on it. But just that's life,
Yeah.
like I said, we walk through two different journeys in life and we go through
Yeah.
different experiences and we never
Yeah.
know, what one person thinks of there, especially with a random stranger.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
so cool. And I think that's, what I've loved about podcasting and being guests is just like, is exactly what you're talking about. Like how you can get on a conversation, get on a call with someone you've never met before and go to all kinds of interesting places and just what an amazing tool. Technology just blows my mind. The internet's an amazing place.
Yeah, if you would have told me, back in 2009, that's when I graduated college, my bachelor's degree, that, podcasts were going to be a big thing. And I don't even know
Yes.
how long podcasts have been going now, but I would have just been like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
People get on the internet and, like Joe Rogan have 3-hour conversations or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, who's going to listen to that? And especially when I did start this podcast, and I didn't mean this, go down this podcast soapbox. I'll take it back to
Well, I'm curious. So keep going. This is great.
Okay, cool. But
Let's just flip it around.
but it was one of these things that, even now, like, when I just go coming home from Thanksgiving or whatever, people were just like, like, what are you doing? You podcasting? I was like, yeah, I started a podcast. Like, well, who's listening to that? And I was like, well, some people are. And like, well, what do you talk about? And I was like, well, we just talk about whatever comes up or whatever the person's background is. Like, well, and like, it was one of these people who never really heard a podcast or anything.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
like, who does that? Who listens to that? And like, well, you watch the news for an hour. I mean, what's the, I mean, maybe I might go on little random topics or sometimes, but yeah, it's like,
Well, I just feel behind that. Like that's just such an interesting narrative. Like who would listen to that? Like would that just speaks to that own person's like maybe limiting belief that they could have an interesting conversation,
kind of like rock and roll back in the day when it, I guess it came out in like heavy metal or I don't even know, 80s hair bands and people just like, so, was it sex, drugs, and rock and roll? They're killing the kids. You should be the stuff. And now it's kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what I see it as. Like people hate it first and then it just starts to go with the flow.
It just becomes mainstream, right? Yeah, now everybody's got a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And then, yeah, that's it. Literally, I don't know how many podcasts are out there. Like 3 or 4 million was the last time I saw. And they went up so big during COVID. And I was one of the numbers too. But now I hear that they're falling out just because of people are done with
getting
it.
back to work and
get back to work.
They don't have the will to stick with it like you do.
Well, it's one of these things that when I do things, I get, and I've never been an entrepreneur except if you want to count this as entrepreneurship, but
I count it.
Okay. Thank you. But, I've learned that when you start something and I want to make it good or I want to make it as good as I can with whatever resources I have and just, keep riding it until I get bucked off, I guess is way to put it. And I had a set goal in mind and I had a set structure that, okay, this is how I'm going to do things and we'll just see how it plays out. And and I always tell all my other friends, like when people stop listening, then I'll stop recording or whatever. And I've been thinking about picking up a musical instrument actually. So speaking of that, but
there you go.
So that's my thing.
Have you reached that goal yet? Can I ask you that? I'm curious what the goal is and if you how far you are along the way.
Ask me whatever you want to, bro. As far as what's goal? As far as
like you said, like you had a goal that you were just chasing after with the podcast, and so you're just following through on it.
Uh, my first goal was to like I got to 50 episodes, right? Well, actually, it was like
Yeah.
get to 10 episodes. I did 10. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm doing this. We're doing it.
Yeah.
It's happening. And I remember the first time I actually got to interview somebody like yourself, just somebody random that who's not one of my friends, or even just
Yeah.
I don't even want to say interview, but just have a conversation with, right? That and I forgot that was like in 20 episode 20 something, 30 something. And I was like, shoot, man, all right, maybe I can get to 50, right? And it got
Yes.
to be like that. Then you get past 50 and I'm in my 60s, and I was like, well, I'm almost to 100 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and like now, going 2 years in, like literally you're episode 190 something, I think.
That's
So
wild.
and so now it's like, wow, I'm gonna be coming up on 200th episodes or 200
Yes.
episodes. So now that was my goal too. And then and after that, depending on how it goes from there, I guess I'll still keep going because that's what I'll be like. Hey man, I'm still going, man. I'm still people are
Yeah.
listening. I'm getting downloads. Why not? And
It's so good.
it's still fun. I still get to have cool conversations with people like yourself. And even
Yeah.
if it's not, I have endorsements sending me, I don't know what, like I don't know, like Apple sending me iPhones and stuff
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Right.
right? But it's
Then
still
you'll know. Then you'll have arrived.
but it's still fun. Just and like building these, sometimes I forget that building how much fun is building these connections with people
Yes.
from them. And even though like
Completely agree.
you were talking about profit earlier, even if there is no Bitcoin or actual real
Yeah.
money coming in, that just
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, like that was fun. That was cool.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
glad like I took an hour out of my day just to sit and talk with Dan about, X, Y, and Z.
It's so cool. And like you don't know where you don't know where your life is going. You don't know where your aspirations are going. You don't know where your career is going, but you're building a resource that you can point to. And just imagine, like, say you want to get another job, right? Like you apply for that job, and sure, this has may have no crossover with whatever you're applying for.
Sure.
But like think about these two resumes that look the same. And like this one guy's got this podcast he's been doing for years. That's super interesting. And like people can like get to know you
Yep.
via your podcast. Like they're like it's an asset. And so you're building something. You're building a legacy. And so I applaud you.
Thank you. Well, that was
Applaud you
another
for what you're doing.
that was another goal too, was that, whatever I'm saying on here, people are going to be listening to, and that I wanted like this conversation to be the same thing that I would have at dinner, like with you, even though
Yeah.
I know we're recording, like I want to be my true authentic self. I want people because people will call you out on your bullshit and they're
Yeah.
like, hey, you didn't say that last time on that podcast, man. Like,
Uh-huh.
hey, like you lied or were you just making stuff up? So I was like, you guys, you just got to be Chris Sheeler, man. You just got to do your thing. So
Yeah.
and speaking to that though, I wanted to ask you, like going back into if you asked me about the conversations like in the grocery store or whatever, but when you
Yeah.
started your podcast and like
Yeah.
being a pastor, having that background, was it easy
Yeah.
for you just to kind of go right into it and to start talking? And because you were comfortable talking in front of crowds, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was definitely comfortable talking in front of crowds, but I think that I've always carried a lot of I don't know, social pressure, I guess, or maybe anxiety on behalf of the other person, whether or not they are feeling anxious, right? Like, so I felt, especially early on, like afraid of asking a question that would put somebody in a place where they felt like they didn't know how to respond, or yeah, like not navigate the conversation the most eloquent way. And so I think that I had a lot of anxiety at first going into the interviews. I would like be thinking about them all day, and then like I remember the first couple episodes that I ever recorded, I was like, I just hit record on the mic, and it was just like I was just kind of trying to introduce the topic, but you'd listen back and it's like I was just like an adrenaline junkie, like that just like gone skydiving. I was like, this is awesome. Like
Uh-oh.
some time to like take a chill pill, chill out, and also just kind of lean into the conversation. I think if you have too much of your own stuff, your own fears, your own concern going in, then it's hard to actually hear the other person or actually see the other person and pay attention to what they're bringing to the table, because you're just worried about what you're going to say next and how to direct the conversation next. And so yeah, I think that was some of the bigger learnings along the way for me.
And going along with that, and building your software company and building Video Snap and stuff, and most and yeah, but I guess what am I trying to say here? Generally speaking, pastors are looked up as a leader, for example,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And you starting these companies. I mean, were you able to take what you learned as being a pastor as far as leadership modality
Yeah.
in there and like being a a boss of or a supervisor of what,
Totally.
4 people? Like, I can't remember what you
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
Was that kind of
Yeah, that's a great insight. I really think so. I mean, like I am who I am in all the in all the different places, all the different aspects, all different parts of my life. I'm still the same guy. And I think that I carry with me, a couple of things. One is like I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve, and like I said earlier, it's like a sort of soft. I forget what the question was that you asked, but like such a soft response, and that's just kind of my tendency. Um, and like I'm strong in empathy. I really care about the people that I interact with, whether those are people like you across the internet or people that work for me.
Sure.
But especially the people that work for me, like I really want them to have a good experience and to feel like what we're doing together is moving them forward in life and helping them achieve their goals and taking care of their family and all of those things. So it's definitely a part of a part of myself that I carry with me. And I guess the other piece is like I think that I guess I've already said it that everything in my life, everything good in my life has come through relationships, come through partnerships. And I think a big part of that is I'm good with people again, like that's such a soft skill, right? Like you don't put that at the top of your resume.
Personable.
Thankfully I don't need to at this moment at least. But it's 100% true that like I think I'm good at helping people feel like I care about them because I genuinely do. I think and that opens doors.
Yeah, a lot of people just won't. Even if you can't help them with their problems, just to vent to somebody and
Yeah.
just knowing that they're listening, in my experiences anyway,
Yes.
that they're just listening and that, hey, cool. I open up today and I feel better. He may have said a few cool little quips and now I'm going my way. Even though if we didn't fix my problems or anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's just good that you genuinely took the time to listen to a person
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
because I feel like sometimes people think they want their problems fixed right there with instant results, kind of like going
Yep.
back to the earlier conversation. But really, like in my experience again, that I just wanted somebody just to hear me out. Hey, my day
Yes.
sucked. That's all I wanted to say. And I just wanted to
Yes.
get that off. Like instead of just telling myself 1,000 times over all day, I just wanted to go sit down. Have a nice dinner. But hey, man, my day sucked, and let me tell you why.
Yes.
Give me five
It's
minutes.
like, I mean, I totally agree. Like 1,000%. It's like a conversation, just replaying a conversation I had with my wife like last week about something, she had been with the kids all day and she was like having some discipline thing, like one of the kids acting up or whatever. And then I'm like, she tells me about it and it was like super hard. And I'm like, oh, well, you got to do this or that or this. And she's like, I think I just want you to hear like how crappy it's been. And I'm
Exactly.
like, sorry. Like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that it's been
Yeah.
yeah. So getting out of that fix it mind, like sometimes people just want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want their experience, their lived experience to be validated. And so if you can do that for people, that's a gift.
Have you always seen yourself as a caring person, like, even when you were a young child?
Hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, I think so. I think like I mean like I've already said like I'm a bit emotional. You go back through my podcast feed. It's not uncommon. I'll get choked up on an interview. Like
Sure.
I don't fit the mold of like the stereotypical masculine male energy and yeah and like it's taken me a long time to like to feel okay about that, right? Because it's so countercultural, I guess, in some ways. Like I don't like I don't know. I guess I'm calling myself a sissy, right? Like that's what it feels like, right? Like, but we don't have other language for that. For a man who feels a lot. And I think that goes hand in hand with care, and I think you can't really separate the two. And so, um, that's a long way to answer your question. Like yes and no. Like I think I have always been this way, but I also it's taken me a long time to like really just say, yeah, I'm a guy and I'm a dude that cries a lot, and that's just I've been in this body for 40 years, and that's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's taken me some growing up to be able to just own that.
Yeah. Wait, you're 40 years old?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, I'm 36, but so you're not much older than me, but
yeah,
to your point though, growing up for me, I lived in a very rural area and I was always watching movies and, growing up in the late 80s and early 90s,
yeah.
it's all about, like, machismo. Is that
Macho.
yeah,
Yes,
but yeah,
yes,
like those type of
exactly.
movies and like be Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and like those type of people, like they were the cultural icons, I guess, right? You had to be like them. And if you were one of these people, who were to express their feelings or how you really felt, or you're like, "Hey, I'm sad," like, "Well,
Yeah.
I'm sad,"
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it was kinda what you said that, you really I mean, you were looked down as a sissy, right? You weren't
Yes.
supposed to be that being in a male,
Yep.
you weren't supposed to do that, and that's kind of what
Totally.
and kinda growing up that was for me, is just that, I felt like if I did express my feelings that it was like, "Well, you shouldn't think that way." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Like, well, there's a
Totally.
reason maybe why I'm thinking this way. I mean, I feel weird, I feel bad, and I
Yeah.
felt like it was just, like, what every or most kids there did was just take whatever that feeling was and just stuff it down
Just
and
stuff it down.
inside
Exactly.
and just like, then all of a sudden, I had a bad temper when I was little, I was just and I don't know if that was because those outbursts right there just were
Yeah.
me just not really understand or even knowing how to express feelings or whatever.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Well, yeah,
but
and like anger as we're getting to like stereotypes of gender and stuff, but like it's okay for a male to express anger. Like that's an okay emotion, but not sad, not
no.
tenderness, not any of those more feminine
But now
feelings.
I'm
So
wondering if I think it's becoming more acceptable
yes,
of
yes,
just
thank
because of
goodness.
just because of, even growing up too, like yoga and stuff like that was like, you don't do yoga. That's for just, only women or whatever. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
now it's like there's a lot more research coming out about how like, pro athletes are incorporating their routines every day just because of
yes,
longevity that they can keep playing and stuff like that.
yes,
And like now, it's cool to have these, mental health conversations rather than
yeah,
not a sexy conversation, so to speak, quote unquote, but it's okay to have these now. You know,
100%.
if for whatever, I guess because that's a trend or just more research we're learning about the human mind and the neuroscience behind
Yeah.
all that, but it's just like it's acceptable now. That's my whole point, I guess, before I
Yeah.
went on
Well,
this.
I'll sign off on that. And I think that some of it's that like our generation grew up with like that, these hard black and white definitions of what it meant to be male or what it meant to be female. And like, like I've been sharing just even now, like in my experience, like I didn't fit those molds perfectly. And so I had to like, and that hurt. And so like
Sure.
now I'm like, I want to have a conversation like this so that other people can hear it and be like, oh, maybe I'm not the only one, And so I think that we're slowly breaking down some of those stereotypes and making more space for these conversations about mental health, about feelings, about yoga, about self-care, about whatever it is. Like you don't have to just be a macho and just grit your teeth and hustle your way through.
Yeah, I think that was one. Man, I hope I didn't lose my train of thought here, but that was one of the things that you know I lost my train of thought. But you said something, and now I lost
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it was
Well,
something.
I would just kind of on this theme, something else I'll just add. Like I was on Reddit the other day, and there's like some video that was trending. It was like really tender between this woman and her dad who had like dementia, and like one of the top comments was like, oh great, now I got to go stuff my stuff these tears somewhere, or like go cry in the men's room. And then like the next comment was like, dude, you don't have to do that anymore. And I thought it was like just the bet, and like that one like had like so many upvotes. Like we don't, and I think that's what it was. Like we don't have to do that anymore. Didn't anybody tell you? And I'm like, that's so good to
Mhm.
see on Reddit. Someone just out there in the internet saying, dude, as a man, it's okay to have feelings.
That's where I was going to go with my thought before I lost it. Just you said something, and but just talking about anger and emotions and crying
Yeah,
and stuff that I've seen in college, and I'm not calling anybody out or anything, but there were situations that happened where the situation just escalated to 1,000%, and
yeah,
people were almost getting so angry and shouting, like
yes,
especially guys, and then all of a sudden afterwards, when everything cooled down, like there was crying afterwards from guys.
yeah.
It's like
Like
wow,
the release.
yes, and I was just like, I remember wondering that. It's like, wait, what just happened? That guy was
Yeah,
furious, punching walls, yelling, screaming, cussing,
yeah,
saying everything. And all of a sudden, now that he's outside, the situation got de-escalated. Like
yes,
the emotions are coming out, like tears.
yes, totally.
Like whoa! And like I remember just blowing, like my mind was blown. Like what? And I was trying to understand, like what is going on in the human mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember
Mm-hmm.
thinking that, like, how does this happen? Like I don't. And
Yeah,
I remember it did happen to me once in high school that I cried, and, like, I kinda
yeah,
forgot about it until, like, I got super mad, then all these feelings came out, and I cried,
yeah,
happened, and, like, oh,
yeah.
And I don't know where that was my point or what I was going.
Yeah.
It was just
Well, I mean, like psychologically, it makes a ton of sense. You know, I'm a dad. I've got three kids, 7, 4, and 2. And sometimes, you know, one of them in particular has a lot of big emotions. And I've done a lot of research about this. Like, what do you do with kids? You know, big emotions. They're like, you got to get them to move. They don't know how to, like, they don't know what to do with. And like the way the emotions sometimes come out is like being rough or like being too, you know, just playing too rough, throwing things or like whatever it might be. And it's like it's just their way of processing their emotions. So what you have to do is get them, you know, get their heart rate up, get them laughing, play games where they get scared, like chase them around, like not scared, like scared for their lives, but like just a little bit of fear, get them to scream, you know, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
And all of that is how their body processes their emotions because they don't have the capacity to like talk their feelings out or anything like that. So it just, you know, just rings true with your experience, exactly what you're saying.
Is that something? And I guess I'm just asking this. You know, I'm just a single dad of 2 dogs. Is all I have. I've never been
Yeah,
married.
yeah.
Yes, but is that just something you had to learn as a parent, or is that something you kind of?
Yeah, I mean that piece in particular. Yeah, and I can't even remember which books. I read a lot of parenting books, a lot of, you know, books about I just want to do a good job, you know. Like I
Sure,
feel like this is my most important work is these kids.
sure.
Um, and so especially with you know, with this some of these big feelings and things, and like sometimes it can come out as anger. Like it can be a little disconcerting because it's like what's going on with my kid. I don't know how to help them. And so yeah, so just through like listening to a lot of audiobooks. I go on runs and listen to audiobooks. And that's how I learned how to parent.
I'm an audiobook guy too.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you find those runs though real? I mean, I know we're getting kind of short on time here, but those
Yeah.
runs, are they helping you with your anxiety, your problems, that
Oh
kind
yeah,
of?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like yeah, my mental health. I you know, kind of alluded to some of this. You know, having strong feelings, things like that. I've had different points in my life, struggles with depression and things along those lines, anxiety. But like running is just like it's like my therapy in so many ways. Like I feel like it fixes it. I don't know, fixes is not the right word. It helps my brain stay on track.
balance. Yeah,
And
that's what I
yeah,
found out for me.
yeah,
I started running a few months ago just because I trained for a half marathon, and I'd never been a runner besides,
yeah,
you know, whatever I had to do in CrossFit or whatever. But just
yeah.
found out, you know, running these 4, 5, 6 miles a day, just I was able to like to either put a podcast in, audiobook,
Yes,
whatever, and just like it balanced me out. You know, I was able to kind of think through
totally.
things and just
Yep.
in my CrossFit workouts, yeah, exercise does help, but it's kind of your heart's beating so quickly, you're such
Yes.
worrying about whatever next movement you got to go do. Who's the guy beside you? You're going to beat him or whatever.
Yep.
But when running, it was just me by myself with my headphones, and I just found
100%.
it was like, what is
Yeah.
it? Zen like? Maybe that's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And it's so great to like go out there on a, you know, 6 mile run or whatever. And it's like, no matter what else happened in your day, no matter how successful or unsuccessful, you can be like, I put down 6 miles and like, I did something today, you know, and there's something from that too.
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
Dan, hate to cut this short, but
Yeah. It's so fun.
yeah.
It's such a fun
And
conversation.
I don't know if we hit all the things on Video Snap or whatever, but if you want to plug in Video Snap,
Yeah.
just anything you want to
Totally.
promote, feel free to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anyone who is making long form content, wants to speech, any kind of speech based content, and wants an easy way to get it into, you know, viral ready, as I like to talk about it. Check out videosnap.io. We've got a great free trial that you can get in there and start playing with it. Any entrepreneurs that are you know, thinking about the businesses they're building and want to build a business they love for the long haul, would love to reach out to them, or have them reach out to me. You can find my podcast that's all about those themes, the Meaning Movement. You can find me at themeaningmovement.com. And so yeah, those are the places. I write a lot on LinkedIn, so I can be found there. And then finally, if I'm building stuff with, you know, 923 is this 923.co is this agency that I built VideoSnap with. And they've tasked me with finding some more clients for them. So if anyone's interested in building a web or mobile app, hit me up as well, for that. So there's just been such a fun conversation, Chris.
And I'm glad,
Really,
like I said,
thanks for having me.
I'm glad you were here, man. Like we hit on some good stuff and I enjoyed it. And like I said, it was one of these great conversations that you don't know who's going to come in on the other side, but it just goes extremely well.
I
And
love it.
it's cool. So, but cool.
I
But
love it.
anything
Well,
else here before you
yeah, I'm just looking forward to staying connected, Chris. Really appreciate it.
again? All right, cool. Appreciate you. And we're out, folks. That's it. We're good. See ya.